How are you?
Yeah. Do somebody else, Steve. I don't care. I don't buy your shit. I don't buy your bullshit, Steve. Act on somebody else.
Well, that's good.
Let's see, do we know how? See if we know how to turn this on.
Speed reader on Chrome OS and Chromebox is primarily used by people with blindness or low vision to read text.
Is there a Miss Christine DeNova here? Oh, good morning, Christine. Okay, one moment and we're about to get ready. Madam Clerk, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good morning. It is 9:02 a.m. on February 27th, 2024. And I call this regular business meeting of the Bonner County Board of Commissioners to order. For the record, I am Chairman Luke Ahmet, and Commissioners Asia Williams and Stephen Bradshaw are also present. Please rise. And Ms. DeNova, would you come to the microphone so that it would be on the record for our invocation today?
Heavenly Father, I praise you and thank you for your unconditional love and your selfless plan to redeem humanity from sin. Lord Jesus, I thank you for your awesome sacrifice that paid the penalty for the sins of the whole world, that those who believe in you may be forgiven and set free. Lord, I ask that you would intercede on behalf of our county commissioners and bestow godly wisdom and discernment upon them as they meet and decide on all issues before them today. I ask that your Holy Spirit would fill this room today with kindness and respect for one another. Lord, please guide our commissioners today and every day, granting them patience and the ability to conduct themselves with the utmost integrity in all matters. Lord, I pray that they would have the energy to do this very challenging job and to be people who seek your will for our county. Please heal our county, Lord. Where there is division, bring unity. Where there is confusion, bring understanding. Where there is conflict, bring reconciliation. And where there is pride, please bring humility. Please pour out your blessing on each leader in this county. And where there is hurt, Lord, I ask for your healing touch. Lord, let Bonner County be transformed by your love and your grace, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The purpose of the regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly. Regular business meetings do not constitute public hearings wherein the public has the right to be heard on every agendized item. However, at the discretion of the chair, everyone may be afforded an opportunity to speak on a particular issue if recognized by the chair. Any unrecognized comments or disruptive behavior will be grounds for removal from the board meeting by the chair and may subject the person being removed to criminal prosecution according to law. The purpose for the public comment segment of the Board of County Commissioners business meeting is to enable citizens with issues or concerns which they wish to bring to the board's attention and afford an opportunity for consideration on a future agenda for possible board action. The board will not engage in dialogue with the presenter during this session, but rather may choose to schedule the presenter's topic for board consideration at a future business meeting. Questions may be directed to individual board members for the purpose of clarifying issues or to obtain additional information for the purpose of scheduling the matter for a future business meeting. However, no action will be taken on any issue or concern brought to the board's attention during this session. The chair will not entertain, under any circumstances, comments derogatory in nature toward any board member, staff member, elected official, or member of the public. Our first agendized item today is to adopt the order of agenda.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the order of agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this matter with the board?
None.
I have no questions.
I have some questions. And that is, on the last page of our agenda, there are executive sessions that it is my understanding were brought forward by Commissioner Williams. And there are some oddities. Item number 3 and number 4, and I'm wondering, as I read the agenda last week, why is the Board of County Commissioners considering using public funds and taxpayer dollars for a settlement with Dave Bowman and Rick Kramer when there is yet to be a tort filed? I guess I don't understand why we would use public funds to have a settlement for political supporters of yours, Commissioner Williams.
So I'm gonna answer that question in detail. So you made a decision as both a commissioner and as an individual to perform the Gomer Pyle citizen's arrest. That puts attention to Bonner County and it puts us at risk. And so two individuals, I'm gonna kind of go through what has happened. Before you made that action, legal gave you a recommendation that you as an individual commissioner chose to not follow. And that put us in front of litigation. Then you did it a second time. So we have two members of our community who have been meaningfully participating in Bonner County business that you are denying access to. So that wouldn't matter who the person is. We are facing litigation as it stands for a decision that you chose to make in the absence of listening to our legal. And so whenever there's any type of legal, everybody knows that the biggest cost to us is going to be attorney fees. These people are represented by attorneys, to my knowledge. And so it is the right thing to do, because I'll point out, one, you have sent a correspondence to both parties saying that they were trespassed. You did it on the day that they were already in the building within 5 minutes. And then you told them that you would follow up with a letter to them, which has not happened. So the errors on the part of your decision are significant, which you're the one who's actually risking our money. I am trying to mitigate the problem that has been created. These two people are not allowed in our meetings. Imagine every single meeting, someone justifying that they had their First Amendment right taken and the obligation of the board to allow them public comment during our ordinance. So settlement is not something that actually necessarily even has to include money. It could be an apology letter from Commissioner Almond and Commissioner Bradshaw for trespassing them, for having somebody illegally arrested, if that's the decision that you make during settlement. During Commissioner's chat, I was very clear. We have to mitigate this. We don't just wait, because they started the process in the absence of legal advice that put us all of our money at risk. I'm not going to sit in the executive session on the settlement just to address this ridiculous statement that I'm paying political supporters, because what's more accurate and evident by your actions is that you are attacking people that stand up and speak out against you. That is not a good position for Bonner County to be in. And I personally don't believe that you had the right to use my tax money for us to be sued. And then on top of that, you're creating additional barriers with our prosecutor's office based on your correspondence. So all things considered in terms of your actions as Benjamin Luke Almond and your actions as Commissioner Bradshaw, we are at risk for paying for legal fees associated with what happened. Every time, now mind you, when we did Zoom, you denied to Zoom all of our meetings. Yet in your verbiage, you told these people that they can only participate via Zoom. Not all of them are able to participate via Zoom because they're not all Zoom. So you're furthering a comment that you made, puts us at greater risk. This should be mitigated before we end up with ridiculously high attorney fees that are requesting to be recouped. It wouldn't matter if this case from both of these was only worth $10. I guarantee you the legal fees will topple that. So if you refuse to sit down and have that conversation, and to be quite honest, it should have been you or Bradshaw that brought this up, since you're the ones who trespassed in one meeting and you're the one who civilly arrested two members of Bonner County because you didn't like what they had to say. In the absence of that, even if I don't believe the outcome is going to be that the board resolves it, I have an obligation to recognize the issue, try to mitigate it, and put it in the hands of the people to address your elected officials who put your tax money in front of this issue. It wasn't okay with me that it happened. I don't agree with the way it happened. And more than that, our prosecutor's office gave you a very detailed letter as to what one would do if you wanted to trespass. So if you are in the community and I was your attorney and I said, hey, this is what you should do, and you did absolutely nothing, but these people can't come to the meeting, what case do we have to help protect our tax dollars? That's what I'm asking you to address. And I am being specific. I'm asking you because you're the reason that this exists. And I am intentionally not going to sit in the meeting on settlement so that there isn't a discussion that says exactly what you're falsely trying to allege. I ran on an idea of mitigating our risks associated with litigation. This board seems to have a proclivity to look for reasons to increase our risk. I can only put it on the agenda. If you vote to remove it, you vote to remove it. But then everybody in the public knows you caused this problem and you refuse to be part of a solution for this problem that takes money that we do not have to spend on unnecessary litigation. That is why it's there. The same with the reason on the removing trespass items that are on that agenda. The reason I'm going to sit in on that is we have received a legal opinion on that. We need to address that. That is not an Asia versus anybody. It is going to be following what our prosecutor has laid out. They have laid it out for us as a board. And that comes to the point of we don't have to listen to the prosecutor. This board, through Commissioner Ahmet and Luke, don't listen on a more probable than not basis to what legal counsel gives and falsely misdirecting attention to say it's somebody else. It's not. We can't afford this and it needs to stop. The other items that are on have to do with additional litigation. You guys all saw the cease and desist with a set statement that said if it doesn't happen, we're going to be in front of litigation. Well, what does that mean for our tax dollars? One, this was an individual commissioner's decision. Again, Commissioner Ahmet made a decision and responded to our legal counsel when asked to change it. No. How is that protecting your tax dollars? You should be demanding an answer from this because he has thrust not just this board, but the letter that he drafted in response to a cease attacked our coroner, our prosecutor, and our sheriff, all of which are paid by your tax money. So I would argue that you should have proactively addressed the problems that your decisions have caused. And in the absence of that, I didn't. Farm Bureau is another one. They passed a rule that said once we vote on it, it doesn't come back. Yet this is coming back. How is that possible? We already voted for insurance. Our agent for insurance came and so did another insurer. You denied them a meeting after one person flew here to talk to us about our county, our needs. How does that make Bonner County and all of you look to third-party vendors? Those are, again, your decisions. So place the responsibility of these decisions squarely where they belong, which is on a unilateral decision.
Squarely on your shoulders, Commissioner.
A decision that unilaterally you choose to make because you treat Bonner County as if you are in charge and not that it is a board. So for all of those reasons, every last one of those items should remain on the agenda. Every last discussion to include settlement of how to disentangle my tax dollars from your desire to attack members of the public should be had. Whether or not the solution is decided today or not, I don't know. I know I want to bring attention to the cost as we speed towards you wasting our tax money on personal politics versus following a process and procedure that Bonner County, whether we agree with it or not, could stand behind. We have no grounds to stand at this time.
Thank you. So I guess I'm still confused because you did not actually address what my query was. There was a series of digressions, but I absolutely will continue to stand by protecting the safety of the employees of Bonner County. But I got lost with that. The question was in reference to utilizing public funds and how you were aware that there was going to be a lawsuit prior to that being filed. But I guess My follow-up question would
Well, let me
be,
answer since you're, no,
pardon me, am I
that's a
allowed?
disingenuous statement. And so let's not pretend that Asia is psychic and I didn't know. Literally, as you had people drug out, they were going to sue you and they said that. So you can look at the body cam. And so the reason you're talking about public funds, you're too ahead of the game. You should have said, why did you make a decision to pit our public funds in litigation? I am trying to defend the money to reduce the cost associated with your decision. So let's not play a word game. If you had not decided to ignore legal counsel and went after two residents, resulting in them being trespassed, maybe illegally, I'm going to say may, because I don't really know, because we're just doing things the way you do them, we could have to pay. And when they get an attorney, the costs are high. They are
We'll just take that as a yes, that you are in support of taxpayer money going to your supporters. Thank you for that answer. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Madam Clerk, please proceed with the vote for the,
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Omat,
yes,
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes, ma'am.
the order of agenda has been adopted. Our next agendized item is the consent agenda. And before we get to a potential motion, there is one expenditure for over $5,000, which was a procurement request from Road and Bridge for a double drum roller, which is important for them to be able to chip seal. And it is available, and that cost is $86,383.29. So I would now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to authorize the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the board?
I have no questions.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Omat,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Our next agendized item is with Treasurer Clarissa Coster. Ms. Coster, Mrs., excuse me.
Good morning, everyone. Clarissa Coster, Bonner County Treasurer, for the record. Before you is a request that the Board of County Commissioners accept the Treasurer Auditor Joint Quarterly Reports for the first quarter ending 12/31/2023 for both Bonner County and EMS. The ending balance for Bonner County is $29,920,822.90. And the ending balance for EMS is $1,383,844.30.
I move that we accept both the Bonner County and EMS Treasurer Auditor joint quarterly reports for the first quarter ending 12/31/2023.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Omat,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Treasurer.
Thank you, Treasurer. Our next agendized item is with Emergency Management, Director Howard.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Howard, Director of Emergency Management, for the record. On Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024, at 12:08 PM, Chairman Luke Ahmet made a verbal declaration of disaster for a threat to life property in Bonner County as a result of warm temperatures, heavy rain on snow, and high water flow on Lightning Creek. It has caused erosion of the embankment. Saturated soils caused mudslides and damage to East Spring Creek Road in the area of the 190 block. On Monday, January 8th, 2024, the declaration was voted and approved in a public meeting. The attached resolution is to revoke Declaration 24-3 as the disaster emergency no longer exists and all repairs have been made.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve and sign resolution 2420, revoking resolution 24-3 regarding flooding in the area of 190 East Spring Creek Road as the emergency disaster no longer exists.
I would second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Omat,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Thank you, Director. Our next agendized item is with planning and Mr. Rob Winningham.
Morning, Rob Winningham for the Planning Department. This is a time extension request for a short plat file SS 0007-21 Happy Meadows, second edition. The applicant requests a 2-year extension no longer than April 8th, 2026 in order to meet site improvements conditioned in the decision letter. The above referenced plat is a short plat proposing to divide one platted lot and 2 unplatted parcels consisting of approximately 50.207 acres into 10 lots ranging in size from 5.001 acres to 5.029 acres. The property is zoned R5 and meets the requirements of that zone. The property is served by individual well, individual septic, Selkirk Fire District, and Northern Lights Incorporated. The property is accessed off Mineral Ridge Road, a Bonner County owned and maintained road. The parcels are located in a portion of Section 26, Township 54 North, Range 3 West, Boise Meridian, Idaho. The plat was approved by Bonner County on April 8th, 2022. There are no changes in code which warrant denial of this request.
Okay, I move to approve a time extension of Happy Meadows second edition file SS 0007-21 to a new expiration date of April 8th, 2026.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the board?
None.
I'll just make the comment that this was reviewed in a different meeting and it's in line with what's usual and customary for Bonner County.
Hearing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Omat,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Yes.
The motion carries. Our next agendized item is with Justice Services and Director Stoltz. Good morning, sir.
Ron Stoltz, Director of Justice Services, for the record. 2 items this morning. First one is that Bonner County Justice Services receives lottery tax monies from the Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections. We have received unanticipated revenue in the amount of $74,760 from IDJC, and I'm asking that we move $32,000 of that into the budget line item 006-0061-9390, which is capital vehicles. This would be to fund the approval of the vehicle that we got approval for last week.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve resolution 2421, ordering the clerk to schedule revenue in the probation services FY 23-24 budget and account ending in 9390 capital vehicles to $32,000. This adjustment is due to the receipt of unanticipated lottery tax revenue received from the state of Idaho.
I would second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Omat,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Sir.
Second item, similar to the first, Bonner County Justice Services receives tobacco tax monies from the Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections. We received tobacco tax unanticipated revenue in the amount of $93,557. The tobacco tax was received from the Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, based upon the information before us, I move to approve resolution 24-22, ordering the clerk to schedule revenue in the probation services FY 23-24 budget, count number 006-00661-0, no zero there, 7900, cigarette tax carryover by $93,557 from $30,000 to $123,557. This adjustment is due to the receipt of unanticipated tobacco tax revenue received from the state of Idaho.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Omat,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Our next item is with Human Resources and Director Clark.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Alicia Clark, HR Director, for the record. Bonner County is requesting approval to update the Operations Coordinator position, which is in the Assessor's Office, to Data Entry Administrator. And this will align with more of the duties being performed in the office and the needs of the department.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve commencing with the approval of a revised job description from Operators Coordinator to Data Entry Administrator, Assessor's Office, effective February 27th, 2024.
Second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I would bring to the public's attention, we are not creating any new positions. This is merely a transfer of title to better reflect the work that this individual is doing, and there will not be another position created. Hearing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Omat,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Clark. Our next agendized item is public comment, and our first speaker is Mr. George Garrig.
Good morning. My name is George Garrett, for the record. I would like to know whether or not a agendized item has been created for what constitutes business of Bonner County. I'd like to also know if we're going to agendize an item that addresses what constitutes community activism. And I'd also like to agendize a discussion of what constitutes nonfeasance, misfeasance, and malfeasance. And related to that, I would like to just read part of an email exchange that just recently occurred. I sent this email to Mr. Wilson and copied it to Lewis Marshall and the 3 commissioners on Sunday. Mr. Wilson, it's my understanding that a special prosecutor has been appointed to look into BOCC Chair Luke Amit's repeated open meeting law violations. I would like to add a formal complaint against him over these 2 additional violations. Number 1, planning workshop on Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. Commissioner Omont arbitrarily allowed an audience member to make a public comment when it has been his practice to consistently disallow it. 2, agenda revision for a special meeting with risk management on 2/23/24. A revision to the day was made within less than the required 24 hours. In addition, I have requested a levy of a civil penalty for Commissioner Omont's repeated open meeting law violations. Then I got an email almost right away from Commissioner Omont that I would like to read. He CC'd it to everybody. Mr. Garrig, your comprehension of Idaho statute is probably similar to the other members of your merry band of malcontents and the driver of your clown car. When I am in Boise this week, I will look for illustrated versions of the Idaho Constitution, open meeting law manual, and the Idaho ethics manual so that you can share it with your fellow co-conspirators. If you need assistance in learning how to be a decent Idahoan, feel free to reach out. It's my understanding that there are a number of transplants from more liberal urban areas such as Western Washington who project virtue while being easily confused by facts, laws, and ethics. However, it's my understanding, based on your associations, your transition to factual, law-abiding, or ethical could be long and painful. As I have learned in my first years in community government, you will have lots of company on the way. If you have any questions, please send them my way. Luke, this goes on.
Thank you, Mr. Garrig. Your time has expired.
This will appear on.
I hope you do. All right, our next speaker is Miss Susan Bowman.
Good morning, Susan Bowman for the record. I would first like to thank Asia Williams for her tireless efforts to protect our liberties and to try to stop the two of you from spending our money like drunken sailors. I'm here today to redress my grievances with my government. That would be the two of you, and to speak freely as is my right, my birthright under the Constitution. The two of you are the very government that our founding fathers warned us about. And I, for one, am going to stand up every day that I can, and even taking time out of my work. I work 70 hours a week, but I came here today because it has to stop. Okay, it has to stop. You're spending our money. This is our business meeting. This is not your business meeting. It's ours. We, the people, are the government. And this is not a monarchy. We actually live in a republic. So you would do well to read the First Amendment. That would be really good. It'd be even better if you could comprehend it. But our state constitution also says that we can instruct our government. And I would do it even if it didn't say that, but I'm going to give you a little lesson today. So the First Amendment, the Supreme Court has interpreted it very broadly. Because when tyrants say what we can say, that's a backslide into communism, okay? So New York Times versus Sullivan in 1964, the Supreme Court found in favor of the First Amendment. Another whiny government official was getting his feelings hurt about, you know, what somebody said about him. And so the Supreme Court said this about that. Debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open. And it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. That's the Supreme Court. And so whatever little Robert's rules and all that stuff that you're making up, unconstitutional. So I wanted to say to you that a reckoning is coming. And because you do not understand words often, Luke, because you interpret them as threats. A reckoning is just simply an accounting. That's all it is. It means you're going to be held accountable for your actions. And when that happens, it's going to be very unpleasant. And I want you to remember when it comes that you did it to yourselves. Okay? We aren't doing anything to you. Your decisions are going to come back on you. And so I see you're watching my time, and my time is up. But remember the reckoning when it comes. You did it.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowman. Our next speaker will be Mr. Dan Welly.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Welly. I'm a resident of Bonner County. I want to take your mind back a few months to a proposition brought forward by Commissioner Williams regarding somebody needing to inspect the buildings to prevent damages because of the winter. We've had some unseasonably cold weather this year. And apparently that warning, having gone unheeded, has caused a certain amount of damage to county buildings. This is just one example of a warning that has been failed to be have a resolution brought about. There are other warnings that have been brought about that are going to come back to haunt you. And you have been given them, you have done nothing about them, they will come back. Lastly, I'm going to request that an agenda item be developed for an Office of Risk Management. It is apparent that this county is in need of an Office of Risk Management. Somebody to go out and mitigate the activities of our commissioners and other county employees, so that when they take action that's inappropriate, that risk to the county fiscally can be mitigated. Other large corporations have such offices. this county definitely needs one at this point in time. Thank you.
Mr.
Okay.
Welly, we do have a risk manager and our commissioner chat will be with him on Tuesday to look at that. And then I heard someone comment on the cost of the water damage is in excess of $30,000.
Thank you, Mr. Welly. Our next public speaker will be Mr. Fred Arn. Thank you, Fred.
Morning, Fred.
Okay. Good morning, commissioners. Fred Arndt for the record. I want to thank you for allowing me to address you this morning. I know that public comment has not been the easiest thing for some of you. This morning, I come to you with an issue of great importance. Bonner County business. On or about December 22nd, 2023, Judge Cynthia Meyer issued her court ruling that made Bonner County Resolution 22-197 a viable and enforceable contract with Camp Bay developer M3 Bill Brownlee. The ruling was based on the walking trail offered to the county in exchange for the abandonment of Camp Bay Road, which is basically a quid pro quo. Because the trail would provide guaranteed access to the lake, not 2 years from now, not 6 months from now, not on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but guaranteed access is guaranteed access. I have not been able to go down to Camp Bay for well over a year. That portion of Camp Bay Road has been in the possession of M3 for the entire time. I am still barred from going down to the lake under threat of arrest. There's a construction easement filed by the county, filed with the county, and that's instrument number 1016291, granting county officials an easement to inspect the construction of the trail. Previously, there was a temporary easement granted for the residents of South Camp Bay Road during the time their permanent easement was being constructed across M3 land. The public is worthy of the same consideration. Nowhere in any paperwork I have seen is there any legal justification for the denial of a temporary public access, considering that we haven't gone down there for well over a year. The public is worthy, okay. So after no public lake access since December 2022, and over 2 months after the court order, I'm asking the county to immediately acquire temporary public access to the temporary 50-foot beachfront as contracted for by Resolution 22-197. Failure to do so constitutes a breach of contract.
Mr. Arn, your time has expired. Thank you. This will be entered into the record.
Okay.
I will follow up on that, Fred.
Our next public speaker is Mrs. Diane Welly. Madam Clerk, don't let me forget to get this into the record.
Diane Welly, for the record, I am a Bonner County resident. Commissioner Amont is using letterhead of the county to create opinions that he falsely alleges are the opinions of the entire board. The letter dated 2/24/24 was not commissioned by the board, nor does the disrespect lobbied at the coroner, prosecutor, and sheriff represent us, the people, let alone the entire board of commissioners. Commissioner Amont and Bradshaw have worked nearly 1.5 years to silence the voice of people in Bonner County. From immediately trying to remove Zoom, to suspending all of public comment, to pushing comments to the end of the agenda, to denying public comment when Amont is not there to select who can speak, to falsely reporting that he has read all of the names to those who signed up for public comment,
as the name Asia Williams continues to be on public comment. And yet Almont chooses to deny a resident of Bonner County her First Amendment right to address her elected officials as outlined in county ordinance. He has not instituted a rule that one must sign up prior to, or he has a rule that one must sign up prior to 1900, yet still chooses who can speak. This is a violation of our First Amendment rights as residents of the county. This is a violation of our ordinance as repeated time and time again by our council. This action serves to place Bonner County through Almont's unilateral decision-making at risk for litigation again, as it relates to the above. I have still time. Yes. Commissioner Almont denied the public the right to speak during a workshop, stating that workshops do not afford public input, yet he allowed public comments at a workshop that was planning. The discrimination against some members of the public at hand of an elected official is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Welly. Our next public speaker will be Ms. Sherry Diwali.
Thank you, Sherry DeBali, for the record. I have several things on my list. First, I would like to let the public know that the next few commissioner chats on March 5th will be the risk manager. On March 12th, we've got the Idaho State Patrol discussing the fentanyl crisis. On March 19th, you're going to have Michelle, who is a mental health therapist, coming in to talk with everybody. Those are very important chats that the public needs to be aware of. By the way, I do believe that the Kramer tort has been filed. I got a copy of it, so that is active, the way I understand it. The other item here is I want to give a kudos to Human Resources for updating the job description in the public part of the meeting today, and that is a good precedent to set. I would like to ask executive session for Human Resources is discussing BOCC and the clerk and whether or not that is going to be changing a job description in private versus public. That discussion should be done in public as part of the public meeting, just like the precedent that was set today on the other job description. I do have a question about the job description. If I'm understanding it correctly, the legal assistant and her need for an updated job description. If that's what's happening in executive session, I think we should know about that, and whether or not you believe that that would negate the felony that's already been committed in the county. So those are my questions.
I am going to stop you right there. We will not be speaking about allegations of employees.
Oh, well, you know, it's just a question.
And
That's
you
all it
heard
is.
what my statement was, ma'am.
Well, like I say, it's just a question, isn't it? You know, I mean, hiding behind executive session is really not good for the public, is it? So those are my questions and my comments. Thank you.
So to be clear,
you.
Mrs. Diwali, the executive session for Human Resources is not addressing anybody's job description. It's Human Resources is going to be addressing allegations that have made in the building as an investigation has been completed. And so that won't actually happen in public. If there's a decision that's made, then as you know, you pop out of executive and make the decision publicly. But
discussed at that point.
that which can be released would be discussed at that point. But it's Human Resources providing information.
Okay.
Our next public speaker will be Mrs. Jennifer Arn.
For the record, Jennifer Arn, and yes, I am a Bonner County resident, and I'm going to finish up with what Fred was going to say, that he is in the process of forming the Camp Bay Trail Club, which will have its first formal meeting on the 50-foot beach at the end of the temporary and/or future permanent recreational easement granted by M3 as defined in their instrument 1016291 and County Resolution 22-197. And should a temporary easement not be granted, my wife and, well, Fred and I,
Oh.
because I don't have a wife. Because we, yeah, because we have standing in this matter, we'll hold everyone involved accountable because that would result in a breach of contract and failing to implement a court order in a timely manner. Okay, and then I just want to keep everybody's attention on Idaho Senate Bill 1258 about public rights of way to make sure to prevent something like the Camp Bay issue from happening again anywhere else in the state of Idaho. And you can research that at legislature.idaho.gov. And right now it has passed the Senate, so it is sitting in the Transportation Committee in the House Transportation.
Before you go, did you want to give people a way to contact you? Because remember, we talked about sometimes people had a misunderstanding of what the issue was. So, and then so that they could be part of the walking trail to further it. Maybe, I don't know what you guys are, how do people sign up for your walking trail for this?
That's a Fred thing.
That's a Fred thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm on the Bill side. He's the Camp Bay.
And so
Club
I
side.
did send an email to Bill asking if a temporary is available. He did. Also, he was reaching out to the developer on when will that trail be made. And so he should be online. And so hopefully he gives an answer to you guys.
Yeah, but in the meantime,
I
a
did the
temporary easement,
temporary.
like everybody else is entitled to a temporary
I
easement.
emailed it and
Public
copied
should
Fred.
also get one.
And I will follow up on that,
And there's a
because,
road already there.
Yeah.
That could be used as the walking trail.
yeah, that would be a civil thing on that one, but the trail will connect with some existing trails, which is either Forestry Service or Idaho Department of Lands. And so that coordination, because it involves the state or the feds, can be lengthy, but I will follow up on that and let you know.
Yeah, in the meantime, we'd like a temporary, so that we
Yeah.
can go down and enjoy it this summer. So everyone can go down and enjoy it this summer.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Arn. Our next scheduled public speaker is Miss Jonna Plant.
Jonna Plant for the record. You know, last week I watched and waited like many people on Zoom. And you got up and walked away at the end of the meeting. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here for my 3 minutes because I didn't want to get frustrated and yell at my screen and have you walk away when I knew people would sign up to speak. I'm just fed up with the tyrannical behavior by the chair and by you, Bradshaw, for jumping in with his behaviors. As a community, all we have asked is for a regular meeting to be able to participate in our county business by being able to comment and ask questions prior to a vote when spending money, and to have 3 minutes of uninterrupted time to comment what we think needs to be brought up to your three's attention, just like we have in the years before. I keep pretty quiet in my life and I don't like confrontation, but when others treat others with disrespect, it pulls my protective side out of me. And me watching you treat the public with disdain and disrespect, Luke, and watching you completely shut down the county commissioner working to represent the people is hard to deal with. And watching you yell at your secretary to take the vote when she's trying to speak really aggravates me. And I just have to say, like, quit treating people like that. It's just so frustrating. On March 13th, 2023, there was a memo sent to you from Prosecuting Attorney Marshall in response to the chair's advice about trespassing citizens of Bonner County. He warned you to be very cautious when attempting to trespass citizens from limiting public forum at regular business meeting. And he said the power of the public entity to trespass its citizens in this type forum is curtailed by the First Amendment and the U.S. Constitution. The right to attend the participation in these meetings is a fundamental aspect of the First Amendment protection of free speech and is a right to petition grievances. Commissioner Amat, you constantly bring up your service, but didn't you take an oath that you would serve and support and defend the Constitution? Should the citizens of the county be worried about being arrested while sitting quietly in their seat because they've openly disagreed with you? Will I be your next target? Because I clearly don't agree with you. I'm unhappy with your job. I need to know if you plan to arrest all of us who are disturbed and frustrated with your performance and your abuse of power. The very few citizens siding with you removing public comment have never spoke at any of these meetings. So they have nothing to be removed. But the people that have spoken over the years, they feel it. And it feels like our rights are being removed. Prosecuting attorney continues in his memo on the consequences of doing the arrest that you did. Individual public official liability. It says in this memo that was sent to you, individuals such as county commissioners, their personnel, and individual law enforcement officers can face individual section 1983 liability for wrongfully removing citizens from a meeting. Dan McDonald, the ex-county commissioner, once told me that if I
Ms.
wanted to
Plant,
sue.
thank you for your comments. Your time has
Man,
expired.
I had a lot more to say.
I have faith. Our next public speaker is Mrs. Jennifer Kramer.
Good morning, Jennifer Kramer for the record. I am a Bonner County resident. I guess I'd like to just begin by thanking Asia and Steve for killing the proposal to require permits to demolish buildings. It was kind of silly and requiring a citizen to come get a permit from the planning department when they can just come in and tell the assessor that, hey, I demolished my building. It's a much better solution. So thank you for killing that. And then the whole IT issue and shutting down the systems and access and et cetera. And I've seen the letters from Lewis Marshall. I've seen the cease and desist. I've seen your response, Luke. And I guess one, I'd like maybe perhaps as an agenda item to share what's really going on with the public, but I totally and adamantly disagree with your unilateral decision-making and taking action based on what you want, Luke, versus considering it's a board. You're a board, a member of a board, and it needs to be board decisions that are acted upon. And by doing what you're doing, you're totally disrespecting your elected peers, and that's not fitting of an elected commissioner. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Kramer. Our next public speaker is Mr. Dan Rose.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Dan Rose. I am a Bonner County resident. I asked for an agenda item to address the misrepresentations of the chair's sworn oath several weeks ago. I have not received any communication about the scheduling of any workshop or agenda item, and therefore I ask, will that happen? Secondly, no special meeting or agenda item has been scheduled on the website to address that same issue. I speak today with the foundation of my comments being Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, instructing your representatives. Secondarily, 74-201, which states we do not yield our sovereignty to the agency so created. Public policy is public business. Public business shall not be conducted in secret. And therefore, anything that is public business or public policy needs to be done in a discussion that is open. When it is done in your office, it is done in secret. Ms. Bowman spoke to a day of reckoning, and today I might suggest that I'll start that process by serving both the chairman and Mr. Bradshaw with affidavits of maladministration. You can read them and respond to them in due course as instructed. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Mr. Rose, did you have not knowing what that is, do you have a copy to submit into the record for this meeting, or?
I will submit this to the record, Ms. Williams. Thank you. Our next public speaker will be Mr. Dave Bowman.
Morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Dave Bowman for the record. So Chairman Ahmet, I couldn't help but notice that you came into Commissioner Williams's chat this morning, but it speaks volumes that you don't have the nerve to hang around to listen to the response to the things that you say. So you come in and you have your little speech and then you duck out the door before anybody can respond. So since you clearly don't understand what the business of Bonner County is, it is the duty of the BOCC to protect the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. And it is our right to speak and it is your duty to listen. If a citizen has a concern, then that concern is the business of Bonner County, whether or not you or your handlers want to hear it. I want to go on and address something else here. The actions that you took against the prosecutor, sheriff, and coroner's IT, first of all, puts the county in a very unnecessary and completely avoidable conflict that you intentionally, where the prosecutor becomes a legal or it becomes legal opposition to your unlawful act, one more unlawful act in a long stream of them. And it thereby forces the county to hire outside counsel because you put the prosecutor in a position of having a conflict. This is intentional, irresponsible, careless, complete waste of taxpayer dollars that, as you like to virtue signal every time you get in front of a microphone, that you are safeguarding the counties or the taxpayers. Those are our dollars that you claim to be safeguarding, while you waste them up one side and down the other. And I think the people need to understand that you are doing anything but safeguarding. You're wasting money, not to mention the litigation that's going to be coming your way. So I want to say to the public who's listening, this may make sure that this man does not get the opportunity to continue screwing the people out of their hard-earned tax dollars and their God-given constitutionally protected rights for another 4 years. You can't let it happen. You see what you're going to get. Make sure he doesn't get reelected.
Dave, since you addressed that cease and desist, Bill Wilson actually did just email a response to a statement from Commissioner Ahmet. And so if that does move forward with a suit, that there would be a conflict specific to that, but they would still be able to represent the board. I want people to know that if this board pushes our prosecutor out of this board, you are paying somebody for every little
Thank you for your
email
comments.
that we send.
Commissioner Williams, we
So
are
if
going to
anyone wants to know
proceed
Wilson's
with the
response,
public.
you can request that email.
And it is inappropriate to release attorney-client privileged information during a public meeting, but I guess that's just a perspective. Madam Clerk, would you please read the names of the individuals who signed up according to our prior to 9 a.m. online?
Excuse me, I am on your list of public comment, and I have asked if you deny my public comment, you need to give the statute or rule or ordinance that says you can choose that I do not have the right to speak during this meeting.
Madam Clerk, please read off the names.
Rick Kramer and Brandon Kramer.
Okay. Mr. Kramer, one of you go ahead.
I'll go first. I have a few things to address. My name is Brandon Kramer for the record, and I'm a resident of Bonner County. First, I want to thank Steve and Asia for supporting our private property rights and voting down that planning recommendation. I admonish you, Luke, for stepping into what you would consider common sense government to actually increase the amount of regulations and costs to the residents of Bonner County. It's shameful, and you should be ashamed of yourself for your support of those proposals. The second item that I want to address is Luke's just never-ending propaganda. And it happened in the beginning of this meeting prior to the order of the agenda being adopted, where he claims that Asia is trying to do things for people who supported her in her campaign. Well, I will note for you, Luke, and your propaganda crew, that Rick Kramer also donated to Steve Bradshaw's election for the seat that he currently holds. So I hope that you will share that same position that you held against Asia, against your other member of the board, Mr. Bradshaw. The other item is, it's very peculiar to me, Luke, how the cease and desist letter, the response that you wrote was made available to some members of whomever your propaganda crew is over the weekend. It was actually released out on social media the same day that it was dated for, Saturday, the 24th. And I would like to know how myself and everyone else could be part of the communication chain that you perpetually give out there to mislead the public in social media. So I'm going to ask that there actually be an agenda item added for Luke's mailing list for next week. And I think the last item that I have, Luke, is there was a term that I heard this morning that was unfamiliar to me, and I'm hoping you can define it, and that's a goose step. Would you please tell us what a goose step is? It's your words, so I'm asking you to define what it is.
Does anybody know what it is? Like an official?
Yeah, it was a xenophobic comment made to a Russian person in this room.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Brandon Kramer. Our next public speaker is Mr. Rick Kramer.
I'm gonna actually call for clarification because he still has time. He paused for you to answer. Is that all that Mr. Kramer wanted to present? Brandon, was that all you wanted to present?
There was one other item, and that was I didn't get my chance to speak last week.
Your time has expired. Thank you, Mr.
No,
Kramer and Ms. Williams. You are not the chair of this
I
meeting.
am going to ask that we have consideration for
And
the
it is
gentleman
denied.
at,
You have been
you haven't heard the issue. So
No, I
this
have
is-
not, but I will
The
comply with
gentleman
the guidance
had,
that has been given by
and-
our prosecuting attorney that it has to be 3 minutes in accordance.
and what
3
happened
minutes,
was
3 minutes.
he tried to give you an opportunity to speak. You didn't say no comment, and his 30 seconds continued to toll.
That's
This is the difference of everybody's behaving the way that they should behave in a meeting, but you're injecting negativity unnecessarily. He had 30 minutes going, he paused, or 30 seconds going, and all I did was point out, wait, maybe he had something else since you weren't gonna answer. If you choose not to, of course you can say, I'm in charge, I can choose that, but what does that do to our community? For one more question, it's not worth it. So just let him ask his last thing for the last 30 seconds.
We will move on to Mr. Rick Kramer. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, commissioners. This is for you specifically, Luke. I asked 4 weeks ago for you to provide a report on what impact the IAC meeting in Boise had on Bonner County. What was the discussion and what was the outcome? And I asked you to agendize that, and I have not seen it. I'm asking you again to agendize that issue and bring it to the public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Madam Clerk, is there any other members of the public who signed up online to make sure that we acknowledge all of the folks who did sign up?
No.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. It is 10:04 and we will recess this meeting. Oh. Thank you. I apologize. Okay. I'm glad you brought that to my attention. Good job. Our next public speaker will be Miss Christina Nicholas Anderson.
Christina Nicholas Anderson for the record. And I was online last week too, and I had signed up before 9 and I didn't get called on. So I wasn't gonna let you do it again this week. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with time. Fast. The issues at the Bonner County Fair are longstanding. The community has expressed outrage over the audit issues. blame has been placed on a myriad of departments, lending itself to much speculation on accountability and the importance of proper checks and balances, and of course, procedures. I want to remind this commission, the Barnett County Fair Board is a 7-member board that has been operating with just 6 members for several months. I again bring this to your attention as it is your statutory obligation under Idaho Code 22-2202A, last sentence. Quote, any vacancy occurring on such county fair board shall be filled by appointment by the county commissioners at the first regular meeting after the occurrence of such vacancy, end quote. I believe you are now accepting responsibility and liability for problems at the fairgrounds by failing to carry out your legal obligations. I respectfully request you do so by your next regularly scheduled meeting as dictated by rule. Note a resolution was also never filed upon Eddie Gordon's departure from the Fair Board despite numerous discussions between the board and I. I thank you for your attention on getting this issue at the fairgrounds resolved. I'd like to add, if the county pays my money to people who they may or may not have done wrong in the form of settlements, I will be back with a list of individuals, even former employees, who the county has most definitely done wrong. I want that to be stated.
You're correct. I had brought that forward. You're right. We are wrong in not doing so, Ms. Anderson. Continue to hold us accountable. I have faith that you will.
Thank you.
Miss Christine DeNova. Mr. I think that's Kevin Moore. Nope.
Morning, Kevin.
Kevin Moore for the record. I'm a Bonner County resident. So yeah, I got numerous things, though I'll try to go fast and hard and see if I can keep them all together here. Because I just had a couple of things, but then more I listen to my brothers and sisters here, it makes me come up with other things. So I'll try to start out with one of your early statements, Mr. Omat, was your purpose to the safety of Bonner County workers and citizens. And so numerous weeks ago, whatever, you brought up the term of black mold at the EMS station. And so that took some people aback or whatever, and there was some ongoing dialogue amongst others or whatever. And so the reason I'm bringing it up is that I guess I have a personal relationship with this, whatever, as per a flooding that happened on my property numerous years ago, whatever, and black mold being recognized with the assessor's office and others, whatever, about that, let alone other issues beyond the black mold as per county ordinances and all that. And so I'm laying that out there for you to stay attuned to the safety of your citizenry, whatever, and that being me, one included. And so now I'm going to go on to the Verbetta Bridge situation, and I'm hoping that Mr. Bradshaw will fill in Mr. Omat somewhere down the line of the generalities that happened there. Because there was a bridge replaced and there was a gentleman that died. And I asked you several times, Mr. Omat, if you could give us the amount that cost us in litigation. And you just give some conciliatory dialogue without saying any number. Well, since then, I've heard the term, the number of $800,000. And so I don't know exactly, I haven't seen that on a paper, but I did hear that from someone. And so I want to remind the public, whatever, that these litigations have steadily cost us lots of money or whatever, to where supposedly now we can't even insure our facilities properly. And so whether it was the fairground scenario or the festival, there's been numerous things that have steadily cost us citizens quite a bit of money. And so now to take it to another thing that I heard lately, the road and bridge a week or so ago. Mr. Bradshaw, you made some kind of comment to it. But anyway, I heard the term of 3 culverts that have been worked on, replaced here recently. And so it still concerns me as per how I've been told in the past by Glenn Bailey, by Gordon Bates, and numerous people that, oh yeah, Kevin, the culvert on Blacktail Road, I call it my culvert, but it's not my culvert, of course.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Moore.
Kevin, I sent you an email and copied the right people on what is the dollar amount to include attorney fees for verbatim issue. I copied you on it too.
It must be recently, because I haven't seen it, but I'll look.
While you were talking, I was
Thank
doing
you.
it. Yep.
Our last speaker is Mr. Dmitry Borisov.
Dmitry Borisov, Bonner County resident. I have a concern with the county considering switching insurance carrier. I used to be a licensed producer for a lot of years. And what I witnessed on Friday, I missed the previous meeting, but the presentation that was made, it was a pretty good sales pitch without too many details. And when I see somebody is offering 4 times the coverage for half the price, it raises the red flag to me. So I would like to ask you, please consider carefully moving in that direction, especially canceling current insurance in the middle of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borisov. And that concludes our individuals who have signed up for public comment. It is 10:12 and we will recess this meeting before going into our executive sessions upstairs. Thank you.